The CEO looked up from his papers, his face a mask of impatience. Yes? Who are you? The young man standing before him shifted his weight, his voice cracking as he spoke. My name is Daniel Hale, my father. He used to work here. The CEO blinked, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Oh, the janitor. Daniel nodded, the single word hanging in the air between them. He reached into his worn backpack and pulled out an envelope, its edges soft and frayed from being held too many times, too tightly. My father wanted you to have this, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The CEO frowned, his impatience turning to mild irritation. Why didn't he just give it to me himself? A lump formed in Daniel's throat. He swallowed hard, forcing the words out. He tried. He wrote this the night he knew he didn't have much time left. A heavy silence descended upon the vast office, broken only by the distant hum of the city outside. Daniel gently placed the letter on the polished surface of the CEO's desk. He believed in you, Daniel continued, his gaze fixed on the letter. Even when you didn't notice him. The CEO stared at the simple, cream-colored envelope, his name scrawled on the front in a careful, slightly shaky hand. For the first time that day, the mountain of paperwork on his desk seemed insignificant. A strange feeling, something like fear, coiled in his stomach. He was afraid to touch it, afraid of what lay inside. He had built an empire on calculated risks and cold logic, but this small, unassuming letter felt like the biggest risk of all. What could a janitor possibly have to say to him? He finally reached out, his fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the paper. The seal was simple, just a fold. He opened it. The letter began, Dear Mr. Thompson, if you're reading this, it means my son found the courage I never did. The CEO, whose name was indeed Thompson, felt a jolt. He'd never even known the janitor's name. He continued reading. The letter wasn't a complaint or a request. It was a story. It was the story of a man who spent 30 years walking these halls at night, a silent guardian of this corporate castle. The janitor, Arthur Hale, wrote about watching a young, ambitious Mr. Thompson work late into the night, long after everyone else had gone home. He wrote about the time Thompson, then just a junior executive, had fallen asleep at his desk, and Arthur had gently draped his own coat over him before quietly finishing his rounds. He remembered the posters of rockets and stars Thompson had pinned to his cubicle wall, dreaming of a future no one else could see. Arthur had seen it. The letter detailed small, forgotten moments. The time Thompson had smashed a coffee mug in frustration after a deal fell through, and Arthur had cleaned it up, leaving a fresh, hot cup of coffee on his desk the next morning with a simple, unsigned note that said, Tomorrow is a new day. Thompson remembered that coffee. He'd always assumed it was from the night shift security guard. The letter spoke of overheard phone calls, not in a prying way, but with a fatherly concern. Arthur had heard Thompson agonizing over the risk of launching the company's first satellite. He'd heard the doubt in his voice, the fear of failure. The night before the launch, Arthur had left a small, polished stone on Thompson's desk, a worry stone, he called it in the letter, something his own father had given him. Thompson's hand flew to his pocket. He'd carried that stone every single day for 15 years. He thought he'd found it on the street. The letter continued, I saw the fire in you, son. The same fire I once had before life handed me a different path. I never built rockets, but I gotta watch one take flight. Thompson's vision blurred. The crisp corporate air of his office suddenly felt thick with emotion. He was no longer a CEO in a high-rise tower. He was a young man in a cubicle, full of dreams and doubts. He was a son being seen by a father he never knew he had. Arthur wrote about his own son, Daniel. He wrote about how he used the stories of Mr. Thompson's perseverance to inspire Daniel. I'd tell him, the letter read, look at Mr. Thompson. He never gives up. You can be like that too. Thompson looked up at Daniel, who stood silently, his eyes filled with a mixture of grief and pride. This young man's entire view of success had been shaped by a version of Thompson that Thompson himself had long forgotten. He had become so focused on the numbers, the profits, the next quarter, that he'd forgotten the person he was when he started. He'd forgotten the passion, the dreams pinned to a cubicle wall. Arthur's letter wasn't just a memory. It was a mirror, reflecting a man Thompson barely recognized anymore. The final lines of the letter were almost faded, as if written with the last of Arthur's strength. Don't ever let the fire go out, Mr. Thompson. The world needs people who look at the stars. Thank you for letting an old man watch you reach for them. It was the honor of my life. A tear escaped and traced a path down Thompson's cheek. He carefully folded the letter and placed it back in its worn envelope. He looked at the mountain of papers on his desk, the endless stream of emails on his screen. For the first time in years, they seemed utterly meaningless. Your father, Thompson said, his voice thick with emotion. What was his name? Arthur, Daniel replied softly. Arthur Hale. Thompson stood up and walked around his desk, something he never did with visitors. He stood in front of Daniel, not as a CEO to a janitor's son, but as one man to another. Daniel, he said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. Your father was the soul of this company. And I never even knew his name. He paused, gathering his thoughts. You said he believed in me. But the truth is, he held me up. He was the foundation I never knew I was standing on. Thompson looked around his office, at the panoramic view of the city he had conquered. But he wasn't looking at the buildings. He was seeing the empty hallways at night, hearing the quiet squeak of a janitor's cart, feeling the warmth of a coat draped over his shoulders. What are you studying, Daniel? Thompson asked, his tone changing. It was no longer distant or impatient, but warm, genuine. Astrophysics, Daniel said, a bit surprised. I want to build rockets. Like you. Thompson smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. It felt foreign on his face. Of course you do, he said. He guided Daniel over to the large window overlooking the city. Your father watched me build this, Thompson said, gesturing to the sprawling corporate campus below. But he was building something far more important. He was building you. He was building character. He was building a legacy of kindness and quiet strength. Thompson turned back to face him. I've been looking for a successor, someone with the right vision, the right passion. The board has a list of candidates, all with impressive resumes. He paused, looking Daniel straight in the eye. But they don't have what your father had. They don't have his heart. And from what I can see, he gave it to you. Thompson walked back to his desk and picked up the phone. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day, he said into the receiver. And cancel my meeting with the board. I've found our new head of innovation. He hung up and looked at Daniel, whose mouth was agape. It's a new program, Thompson explained. An internship. The best one we've ever had. It comes with a full scholarship. We'll pay for your studies. You'll work here, with me. You'll learn everything I know. Daniel was speechless. Tears welled in his eyes. But why? Because your father reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago, Thompson said, his voice soft. It's not about the profits or the stock price. It's about the people. It's about the dreams. Your father was the wisest man in this building, and I was too blind to see it. Hiring you... It's the least I can do to honor him. It's the best deal I'll ever make. As Daniel stood there, a new future unfolding before him, he knew his father was watching. And for the first time he felt the weight of the soft worn envelope lift, replaced by the weight of a new and incredible responsibility, a legacy not of a janitor but of a king who had quietly ruled his kingdom with a mop and a heart full of hope. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a reminder that the most important people in our lives are often the ones we see the least. Take a moment to thank someone who makes your life better in a quiet way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more stories that touch the heart. We'll see you in the next one.